like I said, my word for this year is like just thinking big, like having bigger goals, having bigger dreams. And so like the way I do that though is not just like, okay, that's my goal, like, because that's what people do sometimes too. Is like, yeah, maybe they have goals and they like, oh, that's my goal. It's like, how are you going to get there?
This is From Paint to Purpose, a podcast by FCP Services, where we believe people drive growth, exploring topics related to company culture, leadership, and construction industry insights. Now your host.
Welcome everybody. Today we have Amir Alexander. Amir is part of, is it First Collective?
Yeah, One's Collective, First Collective. Either way, it's fine.
Okay, so tell me about that.
So One's Collective, like you said, my name is Amir Alexander. I have a company, One's Collective, and our main focus is in web design, strategy, consulting, and all that kind of stuff. And so I actually recently have kind of pivoted in my company and doing strictly web design and strategy. Previously, I was doing more heavily video and photography and all that kind of stuff. So, especially with COVID, kind of adapt or die thing. And so I've been switching over slowly but surely into the main things, web design and strategy.
Was COVID the reason why you decided to pivot, or was that already in your game plan?
Oh, no, yeah, it was definitely in the game plan. And it's funny that you said that because just recently, I take tons of notes. Like if I'm thinking about something, I'll just write it down. And in 2019, basically what I'm doing now is kind of something that I wrote down years ago. And so that's why I always even tell people, if you have an idea or something like that, make sure you get it down. Because I went back into a platform that I don't take notes in anymore. And I was like, wait, what I said I wanted to be doing, I'm doing now. And so it was kind of like a surreal thing for me. But I was like, it's good to look back to see wow, I'm actually doing what I put down. That felt awesome.
Right. What did you do before First Collective?
So I've kind of been on and off with my company, especially while in the beginning stages, where it's okay, I need to work for a little bit and I need to, do my company part-time work, and finally got to a stage where it's I had to make a decision. And so I kind of switched over. So I had several jobs. My dad also has a cleaning company, so I would work with him, just kind of supplement my income. And then I got to a place where it's oh wait, no, I think I could do this full time. And so, it was just kind of odd jobs. I've worked at the YMCA, tons of places. And, again, for me, it was kind of making that decision. And something that, I tell people all the time and even kind of remind myself is you're never going to be fully ready. So it's kind of you have to kind of jump off the ledge at some point. And so that was kind of my journey with that. It's okay, fresh out of high school, I didn't go to college or anything. Fresh out of high school, started my business. I was oh, I'm not making enough, so I kind of have to have a job and do my business at the same time and work with my dad. So it's a layered thing. But like I told you, at some point it's you know what? I'm going to make the decision, do it, and then at this point it's no turning back. And so it's scary, but it's definitely worth it for sure.
I know you had mentioned that you didn't really go to school to pave your career, and that I'm in that area as well. Do you think going back to school you would have learned more valuable lessons, or do you think it's by experience?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a really entrepreneurial kind of family. My dad's always had a business. My mom's had businesses, and I've grown up with a lot of family members and friends of the family having business. So it was I want to say maybe 16, I kind of made the decision. I was I don't want to go to college, and no, nothing bad about college, but I just knew that wasn't for me. As far as going back, I think at this point that would be almost me going backwards.
Right.
Only because of all the experience that I've had, the relationships I've been able to cultivate on my own. I'm if I had stopped what I was doing now to go to college, it would almost I would be backtracking. So I think in that perspective, I think some people should go to college. I think there's things that, if you're a doctor, I want to make sure my doctor has had his
right.
time in college. But I know for me, especially the season that I'm in my growth and my business, I'm if I stopped to do that or went back, I don't think that would be good for me. I don't regret it though. That's something that people ask me, like, do I ever regret not going? I'm like, no, because like I think I it's this thing basically how I call it is like dying on my own sword. So it's like if I become successful, it's because of me. If I fail, it's because of me. And so I take that extreme ownership. I don't know if you know Jocko Willink, but he kind of talks about that a lot. He's like a Navy SEAL guy. He's really hardcore. He talks about like taking extreme ownership, and so that's kind of how I look at my success and like my trajectory of, hey, look, if I fail in this, it's my fault. If I win in this, it's my fault. You know what I mean? So it kind of works both ways.
What have you learned from your past failures, and how have you grown over since the start of your company?
Oh man, failures. It's funny because like I don't, and this is so cliche, and I'm cringing even saying it now, but I don't really look at my failures as failures. I look at them as lessons, L's or lesson. You know that thing that everyone says.
Lessons learned.
But I truly, yeah. So I truly believe that, one, because it makes me take a perspective where it's like, okay, I'm not going to be down on myself. And secondly, like, okay, so yeah, I mean, maybe I did fail. Maybe I trusted one company a little too much, and I had, all my hope into this one company. Like, oh, this is going to be the company that's going to, if I work with them, if I have to get to X place. And I had to realize at a certain point, it's like, no, like, I need to have more than one company lined up. I need to have all this stuff. And, that's things that I'm learning, and I'm still learning that today. And so, but if I had to say the biggest lesson that I've learned, I think is really like focus. Because that's what I've noticed in my life. Like the moment that I'm like, especially in this social media era, like all people are doing is focusing on, what this person's doing, what that person is doing. And I mean, I still get in that today. It's like trust and believe. I'm not perfect, but what I've learned from that is like, I'm looking at, people are comparing our story, and they've either started out before me, or they have a different life story, or maybe even sometimes their story is not true. And so I had to realize for myself, like, okay, I need to have extreme focus on what I'm doing, and not like really like blinders on, and not look at anyone else's success. And I say success because, what is that even? And, when people are showing that, is that their real success? So, you know what I mean? Like everything on social media is so blown up. So it's kind of like you have to be really wary about that, because it gets to you for sure.
So besides focus, what is another area that you think it's important when it comes to running a business like yours?
I think always be willing to pivot. So like I told you just a moment ago, when COVID first started, I mean, I was heavily video. I mean, I had so many things lined up. I was gonna make the most money. I like so many companies. It was like so many opportunities, and within a moment, like literally, like thousands of dollars went to zero because I wasn't in a place to where my business was flexible, and so I had to do like months and months during COVID, kind of like reshaping my business, reaching out to people, doing all this stuff to be able to survive. So I think being able to pivot at times. Like, and don't be locked. I think that's something that people, especially in business, they get locked down to this certain way of doing things. Right. And I'm not necessarily married to, I'm not married to the vehicle. This is something Gary Vee has said. Like, he's not like married. I know Gary Vee, right? He's not married to the vehicle. He's like, I'm more outcome oriented. It's like, so my outcome is to be successful, create financial wealth for my friends and my family, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, in my business, what is the vehicle that can take me there? And if it changes in 6 months, then I need to be in a place and willing to be able to pivot in that way. And so that's something that's been really important for me lately, is like, okay, be willing to pivot, be willing to learn new things. Don't be locked down in this one way of doing business, because you'll miss your blessing, so to speak, in that if you're just like, oh no, this is the only way to do it. I'm like, I don't never want to be like left behind. And like I said a minute ago, adapt or die. So that's kind of big for me.
Right. I was once told that you always want to be on the bleeding edge of a company or innovation or technology, whether it is. How do you feel about that? I know you had mentioned it right now, and I kind of reworded it in a way, but like, how do you stay ahead of the game?
I think so. I think one thing for me, I'm really big into technology. So like, and that's something that I realized in myself. Like, I just love technology. I love new softwares. I love all that kind of stuff. So I'm always inundated reading things, looking at videos on YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Just learning like, okay, like, oh, what's this? Oh, wait, somebody. Because actually, it's funny. I like kind of what you asked that because normally, how I stumble on something new is an accident, right? I'll be like looking up how to do XYZ thing on YouTube, and then I'm like, oh wait, like I heard this guy say something about this software, there's something about this business tactic, and I'm like, okay, cool, let me research that. So I mean, like, it took me like going out of my way to research it, but it normally comes to me because I'm willing to learn. So it's like, right, I'm searching this up, I'm learning this, and I'm like, okay, cool. Oh, let me add that to my business. Let me add this to my business, and taking these little things, and I'm like, okay, cool. And so that's how I end up like learning new technology or finding out about something new.
Has that curiosity also been in the area where you try to find clientels, or how do you find clients for your company?
Yeah, so I think I was grateful for at the beginning that a lot of my clients came from like word of mouth. Like they're just like, oh, like we like kind of working. Amir's nice guy, communication, all that kind of stuff is good. You should work with him. And so especially before I moved to Charlotte, that was kind of my main source of like getting clients. And then so that was like I didn't really have to do any advertising, and actually not until like today, actually, like present days, whereas like I'm like doing different things to get clients. So if that's running ads, or if that's getting connections, this person knows that person, especially being in a new place. I moved here about 2 years ago at this point. Yeah, wow, it's almost 3 years that I've been in Charlotte, and so I'm still working that out. Like, okay, like I'm running ads, seeing how that works, like, if getting more knowledgeable in that, and so ads, I would say my biggest form of like getting new clients now would be ads and just like connections. So like meeting new people, trying to, like, hey, do you need a website? Like making sure, kind of being putting myself in rooms where I know like my services is needed is big.
I hear different opinions on whether a company should have a website versus they shouldn't, and they should focus on social media. Why do you think a website is important for a company?
Yeah, I think I definitely see that argument, and I agree to a certain extent. So I think this is kind of how I view almost everything I do in my life. It's like, okay, what is your outcome, right? Like, what is the outcome you want from this thing, right? So if it's social media, you want this brand presence, and you want to build social media, and you want to do all of that. Okay, cool. But are you selling a product? You need a website. Do people need to contact you? Right. You need a website. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there are like very fundamental like business things that you need a website for. Now, does every business need a website? Maybe not. Like, and there's so many platforms and so many things that people can do too, other than like hiring an agency like myself or someone else that can like supplement that. But I think as far as like if you're thinking, especially like a landing page where it's like you're selling this specific product or you're selling this specific service to a group of people, that needs to be tracked, right? And that's even something that I was talking to you guys about, is like tracking specific things, because if you can't track it, then how do you like, where did this lead come from? Where did this, like, it's kind of all airy-fairy up in the air. So I think with that argument, maybe some businesses don't. I mean, I haven't come across a business that doesn't need a website, but I mean, to say that, though, I think they're both important. You need to have brand presence, you need to have a social media, all that kind of stuff. I agree with that. And you also need to have a website, especially specific to your business, right? So because most people think that they need some type of, I need 20 pages and 20 different tabs, and it's just confusing, and it's annoying, right? Because people, when they stumble upon Instagram, when they stumble upon your website, it needs to be fat. It needs to be, okay, what am I coming here for? I want to, contact you. I want to know more about your business. I want to X, Y, like whatever that desired outcome is for that customer. You need to be like a one-to-one. Like, easy steps like A, B, C, you know, and even short down A, B, like it needs to be really, really fast, especially now with everyone's attention. But to kind of circle back to the question, yeah, I would say for the most part, especially now, unless some, you know, crazy cool technology comes out where it's kind of like a combination, which I see Instagram kind of doing that with you can shop on Instagram, all that kind of stuff. I think Facebook does it now too, you know, some type of integration, but there's still, even in that, there's still room for an agency like me to come in and be like, hey, you need to optimize there. You need to have this kind of copywriting. So I think with that, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say you still need a website, at least for now.
When it comes to, you know, I know you're working for our website, you're working on some backdoor stuff for analytics. Why do you think that's important to track?
Oh, man. I think that's one of the most important things. So, because for me, tracking is, again, if it's not tracked, it's not being managed, right? So, I even think about it like let's even think about it like a sales thing, right? So let's say there's a sales team, and you know they're going out passing out these flyers, passing out all this stuff, but they're just doing willy-nilly and they don't have the numbers to it, right? So it's like maybe you get some maybe you get a lead from that or something like that, but it's like you don't know where it came from. And so that's the same thing like with a website. It's like if that website isn't being tracked, whether I kind of doing two ways you look at it is Google Analytics and Facebook, you know, a Facebook pixel to track your website. So if you're just like and let's say you just have an influx of people coming to your website, tons of people hitting you guys up, but it's like, where did that traffic come from? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, now we don't know where the traffic came from. Now we can't retarget these people because maybe they came on the website to check it out, but maybe you can retarget them later in some kind of like, you know, just like kind of like a brand awareness thing. Like, you know, we're FCP, we, you know, we do painting and whatever, like whatever specific that was. It's like, if that's not being tracked, it's like, you know, you're losing, you're doing more damage than you are good. So I think like tracking is like the absolute, like one of the most important things on a website, really in anything in life. Is like you need to be tracking. You need to have some kind of way to be like, oh, that traffic came from there, or you know, okay, I know how many people are coming on this website a month. Oh, maybe we switch up and that's something that that people that I often get to is like, oh, like your website is never going to be done, right? I think that's something that like your website is forever changing. Like maybe we're changing the copy, maybe we're changing, you know, some SEO stuff, maybe we're changing the way we track, maybe, you know, all this kind of stuff. So sometimes people get stuck in like, this website has to be perfect. No, just put it out there, see how people react. You know, maybe we change some wording, we change some stuff around, but yeah, again, if that stuff is not tracked, then it's like, okay, cool. Like I had, you know, 50 people come to my site, but where did that traffic come from, number one? And how can I reach out to those people again? And which, you know, that's when you start getting into the Facebook tracking and all that kind of stuff. So
what advice would you give to a brand new construction company that wants to create a new web design and have a social media platform?
Yeah, I think one thing with social media, and I mean, I'm preaching to myself right here, when it's like consistency, right? So I think people want to, this is like literally every business model. I have a real estate guy that I work with, and we talk about this all the time. I have a, you know, financial person that I help out, their social media stuff, all that kind of, and I think the number one thing that's always missing is consistency, right? So if you're making this decision to start, you know, your social media, just be consistent with it, right? Because you just never know what can come out of that. Some people say, oh, is Instagram not important? I mean, nowadays, yeah, you kind of want to have an Instagram just so because people click around. Like, think about this. Like, when you're making a decision to use a service, right? You're looking at, like, I know me personally, I'm looking at their Instagram, I'm looking at reviews, I'm looking at all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think for a construction company coming up, you want to be, I mean, again, what you do is super visual. So you want to have, you know, what you do, how you do it, before and afters, going through the process. A lot of that stuff on your social media, your Instagram, your Facebook, whatever platform you decide to use. And then also website, kind of going back to what I said earlier, just making it super simple, clean cut. My motto is kind of like sleek, modern, minimal websites. That's kind of like my tagline for my company. And like, So that's what you want your website to be: sleek, modern, minimal. So it's straight to the point. It's sleek. It's nice. It's not too crazy. It doesn't have 20 tabs. You want to be like, okay, I'm on the site. I know exactly what I'm getting out of it. And the social media aspect, being consistent in your posting, and even Google, like a Google My Business, making sure you have that, making sure you have reviews. I mean, because people love to see that kind of stuff. It gives your brand authority, and it gives your brand a little bit more trust when someone can say, oh, Susan used FCP, or this is what Susan had to say about it. I'm like, oh wow, this company seems cool, and then they make that decision, that conversion to kind of start working with you. So I think that's kind of I think the biggest takeaway would be consistency, and not overcomplicating it. I think that's like literally everyone does that, including myself. So like I said, I'm like preaching to myself in a way, just making it simple. Make this process simple, be consistent, and then out of that, you can kind of start, that didn't work, so let's tweak that. Maybe for your specific company, videos, people just love videos, so let's do a whole bunch of video. Maybe for your company it's photo, let's do a whole bunch of photo. Like, I'm not into making things complicated. I'm like, if that works for you, let's just double down on it. And so I think that's the biggest thing.
I see you're really passionate about what you do. Can you give us some advice on how to find a passion in something you like to do?
Oh, man. One fabulous question. That's a really good question. So I think when you're talking about finding what you want to do, to give some perspective, I'm 22 years old, right? So some people get too attached to, I need to find my purpose. I need to, I need to love what I'm doing. Yes, I do agree you need to like what you're doing, but people get too caught up into that. And then especially now with this microwave era, era that we're in, like, people want things so fast. So they may have started something, and again, I'm preaching to myself, right? They may have started something and it was, they started photography and it didn't happen for them in 2 months, so they're quitting. It's like, you don't even know what could have been on the other side of that, but you quit so fast. So it's like, I think when we're talking about finding, especially, I mean, this goes for any age, just try a bunch of stuff, right? Because I think that's something that, I'm so grateful for my parents for. They had me in so many things. Like, I've done it all. So it's kind of like, and they always had my support in that. And so me finding my passion was just about, let me try doing photography. I'm great at photography and I absolutely love it, but I don't like it really doing that as a service. So remove that. But if a company asks me what I'll do it, of course. Video. I love video. And of course, I actually still do video for some companies, but I love video, but I don't love it to make it a main part of my business. Okay, so just move it down here. Right? I'm just trying things. I'm doing things, graphic design, all that kind of stuff. I'm good at it. I like doing it. Okay, I'm offering that. Websites design, I'm good at that. I like doing it. Like, I'm not attached really to the vehicle. I'm attached to this success, this thing that I'm climbing to. So I think if someone kind of starting out and looking for it, try a whole bunch of stuff, because you never know. I mean, even 3-4 years ago, I didn't know I was going to be here doing this, specific to like website design and all that kind of stuff. What I did was I was willing. And I think that's the like, my hands are always open. My hands are for opportunity, and so like that's my biggest thing. Just trying things and saying like, I do like this. I don't like this. Let me see what that looks like if I focus on this for a year. Let me learn more of this. Let me get this skill. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing, like not being caught up into, I think people get too caught up. They overthink, including myself, overthink about the little details, but it's like, you didn't even really try this, so you don't even really know if that's something that you want to do. So
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
And then trial and error also is important.
Because I mean, look, right? The one guarantee is you're going to fail, right? So it's like, and that's my thing. You are going to fail. Like, I inevitably am going to fail somewhere in this journey. Maybe I get 6 months deeper, and like I said, I've restructured my business, and I'm still restructuring it as we going. I'm doing different things, and maybe in 2 months I found like, dang, you know what? I just spent a whole bunch of money on this new campaign, all this kind of stuff, and it didn't work. Okay, now let's pivot. like just not getting stuck in these little ruts. And again, I'm literally preaching to myself because I do this, right? Like I try something, doesn't work, oh, I'm down on myself. But I've gotten better at like, okay, that didn't work, pivot to the next thing. So
I know pivot has been a huge buzzword right now, especially with COVID and everything happening in the world. Has it ever been too much where you pivot and you're like, well, you've kind of lost track of where you want to go?
Oh.
And how do you get back on track?
Wow, that's a great question because that actually that happened to me during COVID actually. So something that I've always wanted to do is kind of have an e-com company. So I wanted to have like a clothing business. That's kind of always something that's been a passion of mine. And so actually, so I want to start with this little quote. It kind of goes like the right thing at the wrong thing at the wrong time is a curse. And so that's how I look at things, especially when you're forcing to make things happen. Like I said, having an e-com clothing brand is something that I want to do eventually, sometime in the future. But I'm like COVID. I'm like, oh, my business, this happened, that happened. Let me just completely pivot and do something that's not aligned with my purpose in the moment or for the season. So I kind of like started a little clothing thing. I did this. I did my podcast. I did all this stuff because my thing was like, okay, like my business is not like going right now. I'm sitting on some capital. I can kind of deploy that into this and that. So I'm like, oh, let me just do it. And not to say that they failed, that those two things that I tried were a failure, but again, the right thing at the wrong time is a curse. That's kind of how I look at it. And so it's like, yes, that may be the right thing. Maybe one day I do need to sit down and really take my podcast serious. Maybe one day it will come the time where I need to, I'm like, okay, cool. Like my business is set up in a way, like I have, 3 employees, this, that, and the third. I have this rhythm going on with that. Oh, maybe I need to sit down and do my podcast. Maybe I need to sit down and do that. And so, and I got to a point where it's like, oh, I'm wasting my time. Like, why am I putting my energy there? I mean, and it was tough for a little bit, just kind of like me mentally working through all this stuff. Like, all right, let me kind of move side, get back to this place, and okay, what is my desired outcome? Okay, my desired outcome is to have a company, to be able to impact people, be able to help people's businesses, help my friends and family, have people under my wing, helping them out, integrating them into my company. Is what I'm doing now, is that bringing me to my outcome? No. So I had to realize like, oh, I pivoted a little too hard. I was doing too many things, spinning too many plates, and so I came back to that to that place where it's like, okay, let me focus on my company, and so that's kind of where I'm at now.
So I guess in short words, it would be to make sure you have your mission in mind and never, move it to the back burner, I guess you can say.
Yeah. I think something like a big word for me this year was vision. And so I actually it's like vision mapping, to be specific. So kind of like what does your ideal life look like? And it's so funny because I realized not a lot of people like do that. Like I was talking to a guy, and we were just talking about goals and stuff like that. And I was just like, yeah, like one day I want to have this, I want to do this, I want to, I want my company to look like this. And he was like, oh snap, I never looked at it like that. And I was like, wow, it's like that's just, because my perspective, I think everyone thinks like me. So I'm like, everyone's kind of like, oh yeah, let's vision map, let's do all this kind of stuff. So like I said, my word for this year is like just thinking big, like having bigger goals, having bigger dreams. And so like the way I do that though is not just like, okay, that's my goal, like, because that's what people do sometimes too. It's like, yeah, maybe they have goals and they like, oh, that's my goal. It's like, how are you going to get there? And so I think right, I think going back earlier, like pivoting and all that kind of stuff, yeah, that's cool. Okay, what's your goal? How are you going to get there? So maybe your goal is podcasting, maybe your goal is building a construction company, all that kind of stuff. But what are the practical steps? What is the next 5 things that you can do that's gonna, maybe I need to get my business registered. Maybe I need to have a business account. Maybe I need to figure out, okay, maybe I need to do more research on my industry, right? So it's like you need to have really practical things of like, okay, I need to do X, Y, Z before I even I go into this industry. Because some people just, like, I want to be a millionaire. I'm like, great. I think that's awesome. So do I. But what steps are you taking to become that? I'm like, oh, huh. You know, they have to think about that and figure that how they're going to get there. So I think, you know, having a vision and mapping out those steps is really important.
Right. So, what projects are you working on now?
So my main thing right now is I really do want to get back to the podcast because, as you can tell, I love speaking. I just love talking to people, period. So like I want to eventually get back to that, hopefully in the next three to 4 months. But right now, like all of my energy is going to my business and kind of even like redoing my own website, doing all this stuff, rebranding, figuring out like the longer play of my company. Like, okay, what does this look like in, you know, 6 months, and then from 6 months, what does that look like a year and a half from now? So I've been really even almost this whole year kind of like in a really planning, figuring it out, kind of, you know, still taking on, you know, clients and stuff like that, but mainly like figuring out, okay, like what does, you know, because I have a new website offer and stuff like that for my company, and I'm like, okay, how do I introduce this to the market and, like, you know, my brand positioning, and so like that's what I've been working on lately is really cultivating my company in a way that people can understand it well. Like, again, it's simple, and people can connect to the vision, and they know exactly why they need to use my services. So that's where a lot of my energy has been going to, along with, like, you know, filming, doing some ads, which is new for me, doing for my company. So I'm excited to really dive into that, especially going into the, you know, second quarter. And so, is it third or second? I think it's second. And so, like, you know,
It's third now, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, third now.
So going into this third quarter, like, okay, like I know exactly what I need to do and how I can carry that out. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else to say about your company before we sign off?
No, not at all. I think I want to say I appreciate you guys so much for even thinking about me. I'm truly honored for that. And I hope people do get value out of this. But yeah, like you said, my name is Amir Alexander. Company One's Collective, www.onescollective.com if you want to reach out to me. But other than that, yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys for having me.
Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
And we definitely appreciate all the tips and advice you've given us, especially for construction companies, because I know sometimes it's not as trendy as the tech industry,
Oh, yeah.
but we're definitely here.
Oh yeah. No, everyone needs that little bit of spice to know exactly how to, you know, get to that level that they want to get at.
Well, thank you, Amir.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, visit fcpservices.com. Until next time, remember, people drive growth.